Now remember, this is a what? This is an interpretation. This is not how you spell it, but it's close enough. To move means basically to die. All right? But there's a word, if you looked it up, is muktamut. That muktamut means you will die dead. Because again, when he was looking at the teacher, he says, what must I do to enter the kingdom of heaven? What did he say? You must be what? You must be what? Huh? You hear?
Born again.
You must be born again. And the dude said what? What did the dude say?
I'll be born again.
How can I enter my mama? You're talking foolishness. He says, that's not what I'm talking about. Jesus knew, he understood that man in his condition was dead. Because when he ate of this tree, the muktamut means that you will die dead. So in other words, is that prior to our being born again, we are walking around shells. That's all we are. Because all that we are is this symbol. And this symbol represents us. We're an empty shell. We're a corpse. We're dead men walking. That's what Scripture called us. Dead men walking. He said you're like sepulchres filled with dead men bones. So in other words, you're empty tombs. You're just a shell. That's why so many people are basically walking around and they're just dead. They have no life inside them. Or there is a possibility that you was once alive, or you once received the spark, but yet the Bible talks about rekindling that flame, doesn't it? Rekindling that spark. The thing is that when we are outside of Christianity, but what is worse? To never know love, or to have loved and lost it? Yes. Because once you lose this thing, Lance, what happens to you? From then on, you feel this worst emptiness because you felt that warmth once. You felt that companionship once. And so what happens is that that's why you have two different classifications of people. You have those who are dead. Then you have those who have this little bitty spark inside. That little spark is that thing that you're feeling that you know something's missing. How do you say that? What do I mean by this? How do you know something's missing? Because you felt it before, Carrie. You felt it before. But yet it's decreased to the point that it's just a dot. It's just a little thing. The Bible talks about that. What we should do, Emily, we should go up there and we should fan this thing into a flame again. What you've got is a little coals. Anybody ever went camping or something like that, and you wake up the next morning and what's the fire look like?
It's red hot coal.
Well, no, next morning is all ashes. But at the very bottom, there's a little bit. So what do you got to do? You got to sit there, either blow on it or something like that. I always keep, now at the campground, I keep a little small blower. And you walk over and throw you some sticks on that sucker and throw that blower to it. What happens is that it makes that fire come up. So that's my job when we go camping at the cabin. That's one of the first things that I do before I do anything else. Is I go up there and I build a fire, because that's what my mother-in-law wants. When she gets up, she'll have a fire, everything's going, everything's happening. So I get my blower out there and I take that little bitty spark and I blow it. But what we're talking about is, why are we walking around? We once felt this thing, David. We once knew it. But we know that we're not where we're supposed to be. It's that God spark. It's that little bitty thing that's inside of us that God is wanting to get bigger. But the thing is that, somebody find this one right here. And what did he say?
He says he must increase, but I must decrease.
I must. So is that, who's talking there? Who? Who? What's the name of the book? Huh? I'll give you a clue. What do you think the dude's name is? I got it. Joe. Johann. It could be anything. No, it's John. John's talking. So John is talking, and he says, for me to be what I must be, I must do what? Decrease. So the thing is that if this is the elect, and this is truth, that means God is in front of all things. God is in front of all life. But if you've noticed this right here means the dead. Where is God? At the end of all things. The dead, one day, this is the word, the dead, one day, we will come at the end of all of our existence, we will meet what?
There'll still be God.
There'll still be God. But yet it also tells you, where did you place God?
At the end of
At the least. No, you placed him at the least. You placed him at the least. You put God at the bottom of your life, the bottom of your list. So John says, if I want to have life, he says, I came that you what? Might have life and what? And have it more abundantly. But the only way that we can have it, Erica, and have life more abundantly is for us to do what? Decrease. So what we're talking about is, how in the world do we create this thing? How do we fan this thing? We have to be aware of something before we can fix something. Does that make sense? Once you become aware of things, you become concentrating on it. And so the thing is that when you start putting your energy more into God. Now, I'll show you this right here. This is one of the universal symbols right here. It originally creates the image of man. This is man, and this is existence. It changes to where upon the first, it represents the human condition, because it too changes. Originally, it starts as God at our center, and then this is our existence. God is the smallest part of us. God is the smallest part of our life. Think about this thing. Does that not truly describe our daily life? What part of our daily life is God? The smallest part. We don't really consider God in all things. I can tell you things that have happened even in the past couple of days that honestly have been amazing. Amazing. All of this came from like 2 or 3 o'clock this morning, where God speaks. But I've learned that when God speaks, Zeke, I listen. I listen now. Why? Because I don't want just a life. I don't want you to have just a life. You can have just a life just by being engaged on social media. Because, Amber, you hear this? What is social media called? What is Facebook called? No, what is Facebook called? What's the name of it now?
Meta.
Do you also know that this word for the dead, he says that it represents rebirth. But this one right here, this represents met. And it is the male version. When it kills the female version is death, is met. Back at this point again. This represents man. It represents God. But as you decrease and he increases, we start finding the humility of God. We start finding out that this very same symbol represents man, or our wishes, our desires, the things that we want of life, the things that we're after, the things that we desire. What does it say? Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all of these things will be added to it. All of a sudden, we find that we place ourselves at the little thing, and now God truly encompasses everything. Because this is the reality of the universe. This meta, again, it's a symbol of self. Because again, what is Facebook and all that stuff all about? Self. So it represents, meta represents the dead. It's what's bringing about the dead. Y'all get this? So what does a person do? When they're all consumed with this thing, you're consumed with your own death. That's all you're thinking about. But when we come to this reality, we start understanding that this God spark, we have a part of God within us. But the only way that God is going to be anything in our life is that if we decrease and we let God be more in our life. We start coming to find out that we're servants. We're just riding this train because that's the reality. We're just riding the train. But we have to choose what we're doing with our life. Are we serving God or are we serving our death? One of the ways, so the thing is that where this goes now, we go back to this emblem. We have to understand that this emblem of Emet, right here, is the people that have chosen to put God, the God first. They're the people. They're God's people that have chosen. Ta means the end, means life or death. Y'all got that? Where do you want to live? How do you want to live? I find out that the more that I center my life upon doing the things and trusting in God, it says, lean not on your own understanding, but in all ways what? Acknowledge Him. Give Him the thing. Let Him be God in your life. The more that we start decreasing ourselves, and so one day what we'll find is that we're such a small part of the universe, and God encompasses everything about us. I would be absolutely terrified right now, AJ, if I was going through a situation like I'm going through right now without dying. I have seen God through these past few weeks move mountains and do things. My life is better now. I feel better about my future now than I have in years. Better. And you know what why I feel so good about my future? It don't matter. It don't matter. If I've applied for a job. And this is a funny thing. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was telling this friend of mine about, hey, pray about this thing. Pray about your solutions. Pray about where you want to be, what you want in your life. I said, as an example, I woke up Monday of last week, and man, it was on me heavy. Okay, God, I need a clue. Because see, I'm one of them kind of guys that I hate drifting. I hate it. Just drive me nuts. Because I have to think that, David, that I'm in charge, that I'm directing these things. Although that's wrong, that's how I feel. Sometimes I slip back into these emotions. And man, I was just like, I'm anxious. I'm anxious about finding out, okay, God, if you want me to do this, it's fantastic. This is great. But if you want me to go this other direction, hey, can you? The scripture says all things in whose time? In God's time. But why do I want them in money's time? Because I tend to put God here, me there. So I reversed it. I flipped it. I said, okay, God, you take control. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to this guy. Didn't hear nothing. And so I was like, okay. Because I done had in my mind, David, that I was going to text this guy who told me about the potential for the job. And I was like, I didn't do it. But I called my agent, dropped the hint to my agent, and I let it go.
And I was sitting there all day. And I told my friend about basically, hey man, you've got to learn to just trust in God, let God do it, and ask God to show you. Because see, I speak like remedial God. In other words, I am not smart like some of y'all are. I'm kind of dumb when it comes to listening to God.